Hello friends, about 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? I never believed in ghosts until I worked the night shift at Fort Delaware. The place used to be a war prison, holding thousands of Confederate soldiers during the Civil War, isolated on a tiny island in the middle of the Delaware River. No roads, no residents, no phone signal. Just cold stone walls, howling winds, and whispers that didn't come from any living soul. I took the job last fall. I needed the money, and they needed someone to watch over things at night. Short-term contract, decent pay, just a shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3 nights a week. Didn't sound too bad. Until they handed me a yellowed, brittle sheet of paper with shaky black ink that read, "Rules to survive." No one explained anything. The supervisor just looked at me dead serious. "This isn't a joke. Follow the rules. If you don't, you won't be the one walking out of here." I laughed it off. But deep down, something went quiet. I didn't know then that every night in that fortress time wouldn't behave like it should, dreams would no longer belong to me, and that I would come face to face with things that don't belong in this world. This is my story. And if you're listening now, just remember one thing. Never look into the mirror at 3:33 a.m. I was out of options. Rent was overdue. My credit cards were maxed. The last gig I had was scrubbing floors at a meatpacking plant, and even that dried up when the company downsized. So when I saw the job posting online, I didn't hesitate. Night security guard, Fort Delaware. Private contractor, weekly pay, on-site lodging available, remote location, no visitors allowed, discretion required. It sounded weird, but desperation has a way of dulling red flags. The application process was unusually short. No interview, just a background check and a phone call from a man with a hollow, distant voice who said, "Report to the ferry dock at 5:45 p.m. Don't be late, the boat doesn't wait. And bring a flashlight, not the cheap kind." When I arrived at the dock, it was already dusk. The river looked like black glass, motionless and reflective. The boat was small, old metal with rust along its seams. A man in a gray raincoat waved me aboard. He didn't speak, not a word during the entire 20-minute ride across the river. The island emerged from the mist like a shadow, a stone fortress with tall ramparts surrounded by bare trees and metal fences. It looked more like a prison than a historical site. In fact, it was a prison, once. A place where thousands of Confederate soldiers died of disease, malnutrition, or worse. I was greeted by a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Pale skin, heavy eyes, a clipboard in one hand, a half-burnt cigarette in the other. His name was Garvey. "You're the new night guy," he muttered. "It's quiet most nights. Just don't wander. Stick to the main halls. If anything happens, call the number on the radio." Before I could ask questions, he handed me a sealed envelope. The paper felt thick, old, like something that had sat in a filing cabinet since the 1800s. Inside was a single page. At the top, in faded black ink, was the title, "Rules for Surviving the Night Shift at Fort Delaware." I scanned them quickly. Never open cell number 3 after 3:33 a.m. Don't answer if someone knocks and calls your name. Avoid the mirror in the control room during storms. If you hear drums, lie flat face down and stay still. It had to be a joke. Right. I looked at Garvey, expecting a smirk, a wink, something. But he just stared at me with eyes that looked hollow. And he said the one thing I will never forget: the rules are real. You break one, you might not leave this island. Ever. I followed him through iron gates and into the stone hallways. Every footstep echoed like it was alive. The air was damp, metallic. The walls were cold to the touch. I passed by rusted cells, empty watchtowers, and rows of ancient lanterns mounted to the walls. This place isn't just haunted, I remember thinking. It's waiting for something. I was shown to a small security room barely large enough for a desk, a chair, a black and white monitor, and the old mirror nailed to the wall. Garvey left without saying goodbye. The door shut behind me. I was alone. That was the beginning. I took the job for the money. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized I was never supposed to leave. I've worked graveyard shifts before, warehouses, hospitals, even a crematorium once. But nothing ever came with a set of rules like these. After Garvey left, I unfolded the yellowed page again. The ink had faded in some places like it had been smudged by sweat or blood. At the top, in capital letters, read, "You will see things. You will hear things. Do not engage. Follow these rules to survive." I didn't even know where cell number 3 was yet. But the specificity of the time struck me. Why 3:33? Why not 3:00 or midnight? Later I found it deep in the east wing. The door had rusted shut, but what chilled me was this. There were fresh scratch marks around the handle. Someone, or something, had been trying to get out. That night I passed by it at 3:32 without thinking, and I heard it 3 knocks, from the inside. I ran. This rule felt ridiculous, until it wasn't. On my 3rd night, just after 2 a.m., I was in the security room reviewing dusty old camera feeds. That's when it started. Knock, 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 followed by my name clear as day. "Hey, can you open up? It's me, Garvey." But Garvey had left hours ago. He said he wouldn't return until morning. I didn't speak. I didn't move. The voice got more desperate, then angry. Then, something else entirely. It kept knocking for 23 minutes. The control room had one. A tall mirror nailed to the wall behind the desk. Ugly, cracked. On my 5th night, a storm rolled in thunder wind, all of it. The lights flickered, then went out for about 20 seconds. When they came back on, the mirror showed me standing behind myself. I hadn't moved, but my reflection had. It looked at me and smiled. The note didn't explain why, but it underlined those last words twice: "Don't breathe loudly." Night 8, 3:41 a.m. I heard them low, distant war drums. Boom, boom, boom. They grew louder with every beat. I threw myself on the cold stone floor and pressed my face against it. I could hear the drums vibrating through the stone. And then, footsteps, boots, lots of them, marching, passing by the room, and the air smelled like gunpowder. I didn't know who they were, until I found the old prisoner logs. I read the names out loud, some out of curiosity, some out of boredom. One of them was James Cartwright. He was hanged here in 1864 for killing a fellow soldier in his sleep. That night the cameras glitched, and in the footage from the south hallway, I saw someone standing in the shadows, wearing a Confederate coat. His neck was twisted at an unnatural angle. The next night, he was standing closer. They don't tell you why. But I did it once. Just once. The basement is where they kept the solitary confinement cells, brick walls, iron chains, dark corners where even the light doesn't stay long. At 4:02 a.m., the temperature dropped. My breath froze in the air, and the walls began to bleed. I ran. I left my flashlight behind. But something followed me up the stairs. It was dragging chains. Every night after that, I kept the rules close folded in my pocket like a lifeline. Some nights I questioned them. Some nights I almost broke them. But now I know they aren't rules. They're warnings. Something watches from inside these walls. Something old. Something that doesn't forget when you break its rules. Night fell faster on the island than I expected. One moment it was twilight. The next, total black. No street lamps. No glow from nearby towns. Just the sound of wind howling through narrow stone corridors and the faint creak of old wood settling above my head. I turned on the security monitor. Black and white feeds from fixed cameras throughout the fort, empty corridors, the west rampart, the chapel, the old mess hall. All still. For a while it felt manageable. Boring even. But boredom in a place like this doesn't last long. It only prepares your nerves to be shattered. One of the monitors flickered. Static. Then cleared. The hallway outside cell number 3, empty, as always. But then a shadow moved across the far wall. I replayed the feed. Nothing. I checked the live camera again. Still nothing. But when I turned around, the hallway behind me was colder, as if something had just walked past. I heard it first on the stone floor above me, slow, deliberate footsteps. But I was alone. Garvey confirmed it before leaving. No tours, no visitors, no other guards. I stood in the hallway with my flashlight. I waited. The steps stopped. Then they started again, this time right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But on the dusty floor just beneath the security room door, a single boot print appeared. Fresh. The hallway lights began flickering. Not in sync, just random bursts like something was moving beneath the circuits. I passed by a section near the chapel. As the light above me blinked on for just a second, I saw someone standing at the far end of the corridor. A man, wearing an old military coat, staring at me. When the light flickered again, he was gone. But the smell of gunpowder lingered in the air. I returned to the control room to calm down, took a breath, sat in the creaking chair. That's when I noticed the mirror again, the one behind the desk. I'd avoided it like the rules said, but something compelled me to glance up. My reflection was wrong. I was sitting still, but my reflection was breathing heavier. Then, slowly, it lifted its hand and waved at me. I stood up, heart pounding. The reflection didn't move. It just smiled. The door to the east wing, locked since I arrived, creaked open on its own. No wind, no pressure. Just slow, loud hinges echoing through the silence. I grabbed my flashlight, shined it into the pitch black. There were footprints in the dust, fresh, but no body made them. They just appeared one by one, moving deeper into the darkness. I didn't follow. Not that night. Something told me not to. The hour I'd been dreading. I stared at the clock on the wall as the hands clicked into place. 3:33 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. From cell number 3. I stood frozen. The knocks came again, harder, then stopped. Silence. And then, a voice. Not angry, not pleading. Just calm. Let me out. You're the new one, aren't you? I didn't move a muscle. I didn't breathe. The voice whispered again, closer this time. If you leave me here, you'll take my place. That's how it works. The rest of the night passed in fragments. No sleep. No blinking. Just the sound of the river outside and the echo of something pacing down below. When Garvey returned at 6:01 a.m., I must have looked half dead. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said, "First night's always the worst. If you're lucky, the place gets used to you." I didn't reply, because deep down, I was starting to feel something that terrified me more than the ghosts. I was getting used to it too. I don't know when I started feeling watched, not by something in front of me, but by the reflection of things that weren't supposed to be there. The mirror in the control room had become a constant presence, like an eye on the back of my neck. No matter where I stood, I could see myself in it, even when the angle made that impossible. At first, I thought I was imagining it, until the mirror started remembering things I never did. One night, while reviewing the cameras, I glanced up at the mirror and saw myself holding something in my hand. A lantern. But I hadn't moved. I wasn't holding anything. I turned around to double check. My hands were empty. When I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was gone. Just an empty chair. Just the room behind me. Then it came back slowly, like it had stepped out and only just returned. I didn't sleep after that. A week later, I was walking down the south corridor when I noticed something strange. A hallway that wasn't on the map Garvey had given me. The stone looked newer. The air was colder. And at the very end, barely visible in the dim yellow emergency lights, stood a wooden door. No number. No label. Just a single iron latch. I radioed Garvey, "Did we open a new wing static?" Then his voice, "Do not go into the room with no name. Turn around. Right now." But I was already there. As I reached for the latch, I swear I felt it. Breathing. A slow in and out rhythm, like the door itself was alive. The handle was cold. Too cold. I pulled it open. The room inside wasn't like the rest of the fort. The walls were smooth black, almost organic, like old stone polished with centuries of blood and memory. There were no lights, just a faint glow coming from a mirror at the far end. This mirror wasn't cracked or old like the others. It was perfect. Too perfect. As I stepped closer, I saw something horrifying. It wasn't reflecting me. It was showing the room behind me, but it was full of people. Soldiers in old Union uniforms, standing still, covered in dirt and blood. Their eyes gone just black holes where pupils should have been. And in the center of them all was me, hanging from the ceiling. Eyes wide open, mouth moving, whispering. I leaned closer, heart-pounding skin ice cold. My reflection, dead swaying, was whispering something I couldn't make out. I turned up the volume on my radio by instinct, but the whisper came through the mirror itself. A single phrase over and over, "You've already been here before." And then, the reflection of me snapped its head toward me. Not a turn, a violent jolt, eyes black. And it screamed, "Get out!" The light in the hallway died the moment I stepped out. The door slammed shut behind me. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe until I was back in the main security office, locking the door behind me like that would help. I checked the map again. The hallway was gone. Just smooth stone on every blueprint. I asked Garvey the next morning. He didn't speak. He just handed me a photo from 1965, black and white, old and faded. A group of guards standing in front of that very same mirror. Every face scratched out, except one. It was mine. Since that night, I've noticed strange things in every mirror I pass. Delayed movements, things watching from just behind my shoulder. And sometimes, I see myself inside that nameless room, waiting, smiling. They say history echoes, but here, it screams. The first time I heard the drums, I thought it was a generator malfunction. A low thud, distant, rhythmic, like someone pounding on a massive leather skin stretched tight. Boom, boom, boom. It was faint at first, like thunder behind a mountain. But as the seconds passed, the sound grew closer, sharper, and undeniably deliberate, like something was marching its way through the dark. I checked the cameras. Static. Every screen flickering with snowy white noise. Then came the voices. Not whispers, not wails, commands. Shouted in Old English, military cadence. Form ranks. Prepare bayonets. Hold the line. It was like I had tuned into a live battlefield, but one happening behind the walls of this dead fort. The floor beneath my boots began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling. The ancient walls groaned with tension as if the building itself remembered. I rushed to the east hallway, flashlight trembling in my hand. And then gunshots. Not real, not physical, but they rang through the air like echoes from another dimension. Muffled screams followed. Then, the unmistakable sound of metal bayonets clashing against bone. I dropped to the ground instinctively, and that's when I saw the shadows. Down the hallway. They were coming. Silhouettes of soldiers, transparent, marching, limbs out of sync. Some missing arms, some dragging themselves. Ghosts of war. I pressed myself against the cold stone floor as the rule had warned. If you hear drums, lie down. Face down. Don't breathe loudly. The temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the stone under my cheek. I clenched my jaw to keep my breath silent. They passed right over me. I swear one of them stopped, stood still above my body, and whispered into my ear, "You shouldn't be here. You weren't one of us." I woke up, yes. Woke up on the floor of the chapel. I don't even remember walking there. At the altar stood a tall figure in a Union officer's coat, back turned. I called out hoarse, "Who are you?" He turned slowly. His face was stitched shut. No eyes, no mouth, no expression. Just empty sockets and a stitched canvas where a face should be. In his hands, a rusted bugle. He raised it to the stitched lips and blew. But no sound came out. Only silence. When I blinked, the chapel was filled with soldiers, both Union and Confederate, lined up in pews. All dead. All staring forward. And behind me I could feel someone watching from the mirror near the pulpit. I turned around. It was me, in full uniform, dead-eyed, playing the bugle. I screamed, and everything went black. I woke up on the security room floor with dried blood on my nose and a ringing in my ears. Garvey found me. Didn't ask questions. just handed me a cup of coffee and said, "The fort remembers you now." And that was the worst part, because in my head, I kept hearing the same drum beat, even in the silence of the day. Boom, boom, boom. There's something wrong with 3:33 a.m., not just here at the fort. It's a time that feels hollow, like the world forgets you exist for exactly 1 minute and something else notices. The rules warned me, never look into the mirror at 3:33 a.m. But that night I made a mistake. I was exhausted, on edge from the drums, the voices, the shadow soldiers. I hadn't slept in 2 nights. The security room felt like a coffin. The air was still. Too still. When I glanced at the clock and saw 3:32, I felt my throat tighten. I stood up. I backed away from the mirror, but something in it moved. My reflection was standing still, but behind it a shape was forming, like smoke that was becoming solid. I should have run. I should have looked away, but I didn't. The second the clock ticked to 3:33, everything in the room changed. The lights dimmed to a red hue, flickering like flame. The mirror turned pitch black, absorbing all light. My reflection was gone. In its place stood something tall, inhumanly tall, with the faint outline of a Civil War officer's coat. But no face, just a void where a head should be. It moved closer, not stepping, sliding, silent, smooth, as if the mirror itself was pulling it forward. Then it stepped out of the mirror, not in some ghostly fade. No, it pushed its way through as if squeezing between reality and glass. The mirror cracked outward, spiderwebbing from the center. I couldn't move. My knees locked, my chest constricted. It stood in front of me, looming. Its body rippled like it was made of smoke and rotted silk. From its chest, I saw dozens of open mouths. Not screaming, just mouthing something I couldn't hear. But then it spoke, and it used my voice. "You broke the rule." The room bent around me, walls melted, time fractured. I saw multiple versions of myself sitting, standing, crawling, screaming, all in the same room, overlapping, flickering like film, and all of them were terrified. The creature reached out. Its hand, if you could call it that, was a black mass of fingers that kept multiplying, growing from itself like roots. One finger touched my chest, and I saw myself in a noose. Myself opening cell number 3. Myself dragging something into the basement, smiling. None of these things had happened. Yet, my ears filled with whispers. Not voices, but thoughts. Regrets I didn't have, memories I didn't make, sins I hadn't committed. The entity leaned closer, and the mouths on its chest whispered in unison. "Take my place. Take my place. Take my place." I screamed and staggered back, knocking over the chair. The mirror shattered completely, but it was empty. The entity was gone. I crawled to the hallway, gasping. Every light in the fort flickered violently, then died. Silence. Then the old PA system, dead for decades, sputtered to life. A single sentence played distorted and broken. "You should have followed the rules." I didn't sleep that night, or the next. But the next time I saw my reflection, something was wrong again. It blinked a second too late, and there was a shadow standing behind me, one I couldn't see when I turned around. Ever since that night, I've felt something inside me, like I'm no longer the only one inhabiting this body. And sometimes when I speak, I hear a different voice echo behind my own. 3:33 a.m. is no longer a time. It's a door, and I opened it. I lasted 31 nights at Fort Delaware. 31 nights of shadows, whispers, rules, and impossible things that no one on the mainland would ever believe. On the 32nd night, Garvey came to the island with a replacement. A new recruit. Young, pale, nervous just like I had been. He handed me a check, told me I was done. I didn't argue. I didn't say a word. I left the island that morning as the fog lifted. Or at least, I thought I did. The boat ride back was quiet. The water felt heavier, like we were dragging something beneath us. I tried to make conversation with the ferryman. He didn't respond. He didn't even look at me. not once. When we docked, I stepped onto the pier. But something was wrong. The world felt off by a fraction of a second, like a film reel running one frame too slow. I returned home. Same street, same key, same apartment. But everything felt slightly misplaced. The photos on my wall were a little different. My reflection blinked slower than I did. The neighbor's dog, who used to bark at everyone, just stared at me silent. And then there were the calls. Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m. my phone would ring. No number, just static. Until one night I answered, and I heard my own voice. I'm still here. I never left. Weeks later, out of obsession or desperation, I requested old security logs from Fort Delaware. I told them I was writing an article. They sent me a hard drive. I skimmed through hours of grainy footage. On night 22, I found something. The camera in the mirror room showed me walking in. But when I walked out, it wasn't me. His face was the same, but the way he moved, too fluid, too perfect. He stared directly at the camera and smiled. That version of me has been walking free ever since. Last week I went back. I had to. Something inside me was pulling me there. A whisper under my skin. A heartbeat that didn't match my own. I arrived at night. The new guard didn't question me. He said, "They said you'd be back." I walked straight to the mirror room, and there it was, me already standing in front of the mirror. But he didn't turn to face me. He simply lifted one hand and placed it on the glass. I did the same. The glass wasn't cold anymore. And just before the lights flickered, he stepped forward, through me. Since that night, I no longer see the world as it was. I can feel someone else in my body wearing me like a suit. Sometimes I speak and it's not my voice. Sometimes I sleep and I dream in a place with no sky. Just walls. Just eyes. I tried to leave again. But every road led me back to the same hallway inside the fort. And every mirror shows a version of me that smiles before I do. I broke one of the rules, didn't I? Or maybe I was always part of the fort. Just another echo in its endless loop of lost souls and forgotten names. Maybe I wasn't the guard. Maybe I was the thing the mirror let out. And the real me is still trapped in there, banging on the glass, screaming while everyone else sees only this smile. If you ever visit Fort Delaware and see a man staring into a mirror at 3:33 a.m., don't let him see you. Because if he does, he might think you're the one who broke the rules. If you found this story valuable and interesting, please hit the like button. This really helps us bring you more good and valuable content. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think, what questions you have, or what topics you would like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next stories. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories.